Good morning, Ovid LC Middle School students. This is Mr. Woolley, and today we are going to combine two lessons. We're going to take a look at lessons 8 and 9. They have the same title. We're going to combine them into one lesson, though. It's applying the properties of operations to add and subtract rational numbers. So we're using some of our skills we've learned about adding and subtracting with integers so far, and some of our other things like certain ways that we work with parentheses and piecing fractions and whole numbers together and so on. So we'll take a look at what we got. All right, first up, our first group of problems here says to rewrite each mixed number as the sum of two signed numbers. Now, sum means addition, so let's take a look at this. A negative 9 and 5/8, you could break it apart into a negative 9 plus a negative 5/8. And obviously, since they're both negative, you can just add them together and keep the sign, so negative 9 and 5/8. Similar concept here, negative 2 1/2, I break down into a negative 2 plus a negative 1/2, and together they make negative 2 1/2. This works just as well for positive numbers too. 8 and 11/12 becomes 8 plus 11/12, and that's how we get the 8 and 11/12. Now, how do we piece these together? Well, let's represent each sum as a mixed number. We'll slide them together again. Negative 1 and the negative 5/12, all together it makes a negative when we're adding, and negative 1 and 5/12. These are both positive, so I'll have a positive answer. 30 and 1/8 makes 30 1/8. And for C, a negative 17 plus a negative 1/9 equals a negative 17 and 1/9. Okay. Now, here's one of our problems. Here it says Mr. Mitchell lost 10 pounds over the summer by jogging each week. By winter, he'd gained 5 1/8 pounds. Represent this situation with an expression involving signed numbers. What's the overall change in Mr. Mitchell's weight? So we had his starting situation. We don't know what his starting weight was, but we do know he's lost 10 pounds. But then he gains 5 1/8 of that back. So he's still down below where he started. As you can see, he's never made it back to the starting point. Let's just try to find out on the number line here. As you can see, he's not all the way back. We'll see how much it ends up being. Well, if we take a negative 10 plus a positive 5 1/8, there's more negatives than there are positives. There's 10 of these and a little over 5 of these. So there's more negatives. So normally I have a negative answer. So I just take my biggest number, which is the 10, and take away 5 1/8. Now there's no fraction to take away the 1/8, so I make one. I borrow from the 10, make it a 9, and make this 8/8. I use the 8 as a denominator and filled it all the way up because that had an 8. So we have common denominators. Now I can do 8/8 minus 1/8 gives me 7/8. 9 minus 5 is 4, so I get 4 and 7/8. But remember, we did decide we're going to have a negative answer. So it's negative 4 and 7/8. He's still down 4 and 7/8 from what he started. All right, let's take a look over here. This is kind of what we started out the problems with today. A negative 14 plus a negative 8/9, negative 14 and 8/9. 7 and 1/9 makes 7 and 1/9. And a negative 3 and a negative 1/6 makes negative 3 and 1/6. Now here's some problems that you're going to see an example like this on your work today. If you ever have a negative sign outside of a parenthesis bracket, you're going to solve inside just like normal, and whatever your answer on the inside of the bracket was, this forces it to become its opposite. So for example here, 1/4 plus 6 is just 6 1/4 inside the parentheses. But since there's a negative sign on the outside, it forces that answer to become a negative 6 1/4. 10 plus a negative 6. Well, that gives me 4 total. Remember, there's more positives than there are negatives, so I take 10 minus 6 and give me a positive 4. Since there's a negative on the outside of that, it forces me to be negative. If I have a negative 55 plus 1/2, I can do the math there, and it makes me have a negative 54 and 1/2. However, because that negative sign is on the outside, it forces that negative to become the opposite, which makes it a positive 54 and 1/2. So solve the inside first, and the negative sign outside the parentheses will make the answer on the inside become its opposite. So anytime you have a negative sign on the outside of a group of parentheses, solve everything first on the inside, and then you'll take the opposite of that. All right, got a couple of little problems here for you. We got Jolene lost her wallet in the mall and it had $10 in it. When she got home, her brother felt sorry for her and gave her $5.75. Represent this situation with an expression involving rational numbers. What's the overall change in the amount of money Jolene has? Well, losing $10 would be a negative 10, but then someone gave him $5.75, so it'd be adding. Now, there's more negatives than there are positives, so normally I have a negative answer. So I just take my biggest number, 10, minus 575, and I get 425. But because we already decided we know he's still negative, he is now negative 425. He is 425 less than what he started. Isaiah's completing a math problem. This is the last step. 25 minus 28 1/5. What's our answer? Well, I changed the subtraction to adding the opposite. So 25 plus, and the opposite of 28 1/5 is negative 28 1/5. Now, there's more negatives than there are positives, so I know I'll have a negative answer. I just take my biggest number, 28 1/5 minus 25. Well, 1/5 minus nothing is just 1/5. 28 minus 25 is 3 1/5. But remember, we did decide it was going to be negative, so it's a negative 3 1/5. All right, we're going to shift over to lesson 9 now, same title. We got one more. Hold on just a minute. I want to show you guys one more little set of examples here. Let's take a look here at number 9, part A. I got 3 plus 4 plus a negative 3 plus a negative 4. So 3 and 4 make 7. A negative 3 and a negative 4 make a negative 7. And of course, 7 plus a negative 7 equals 0. And here I got a negative 8 plus 1. And then I have to add that to 8 plus negative 1. Well, that gives me a negative 7 in the front grouping. In the second grouping, I get a positive 7. And negative 7 plus 7 is 0. Remember, a sum added to its opposite does equal 0. All right, now let's shift over to lesson 9. All right, we have 4 and 4/7 minus, and then we have a grouping on the inside, 4 and 4/7 minus 10. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this minus to adding, and I'm supposed to take away all this, so everything's become its opposite at this point. So 4 and 4/7 stays. I turn this into addition, and then I'm supposed to add a negative 4 and 4/7. And the opposite of a negative 10 is a positive 10. Now look here, I get 4 and 4/7 plus a negative 4 and 4/7. That makes a 0. And all that's left is a 10. So 0 plus 10 is 10. Here, I have a whole number plus a negative number, and there's more positives than there are negatives. That's how we add positive and negative numbers. We have to make a decision first. And there's more positives than negatives, so I just take my positive, my 5, my winning number, minus that smaller number, and I can't subtract right away, so I have to borrow. Drop this down to a 4, and I make this 7/7. Remember, I kept a 7 as a denominator and filled it all the way up. Now I can get 7 minus 4 gives me 3/7, and 4 minus 4 is nothing, so just 3/7, and it's positive. Okay, up here, I have negative 5.2 minus, I change that to a plus, and I turn this to its opposite, a positive 3.1 plus 5.2. Well, notice I have a negative 5.2 and a positive 5.2. Those equal 0. And all I really left was that positive 3.1, so it's just 3.1. All right, for B, 32 plus a negative 12 and 7/8. Well, I have more positives than there are negatives, so it wants me a positive answer. So I just take 32 minus 12 and 7/8. And I borrow from the 32 because there's no fraction to take away the 7/8. I get down to 31, and I got 8/8, which now, when I subtract, I get 1/8. 31 minus 12 gives me 19, so it's a positive 19 1/8. All right, so next up, I got 316 plus a 20.3 minus. So I'm going to change this minus to a plus, and the opposite of negative 5 and 5/6 is a positive 5 and 5/6. Now notice how I grouped the two mixed numbers together. The decimal number I put on the end, because normally we don't add and subtract positive and negative decimal and fraction numbers all in the same problem. We have to convert it all the same, but let's see how this plays out. If I took a 1/6 plus a 5/6, I get 6/6, and of course I get 8 for the whole number. Well, 6/6 is actually 1, so 8 and 6/6 is actually saying 9. And 9 plus that decimal number is just 29.3. So I never had to do any conversions because I end up lucking out and getting a whole number out of the mixed number grouping. All right, I got 16/20 minus a negative 1.8 minus 4/5. Now this 16/20 can go lowest terms. It's going to be a 4/5. Divide them both by 5, and I get down, divide them by 4, get down to 4/5. So I change my subtraction to addition. So 4/5 minus changes to a plus. This is now the opposite, a positive 1.8. And instead of subtracting, I turn it into addition. And 4/5, the opposite of that is negative 4/5. Oh, 4/5 and negative 4/5 makes 0. All that's left is a 1.8, and there we go. I have a 1.8 for my answer there. All right, we'll shift over to or next page, and that's it. There you're going to see some examples kind of like this in your practice, and good luck with all of your sample problems, and go ahead and give it your best shot. Thank you.